But we do have NEASA's Chief Executive, Gerhard Papenfus, to discuss the position of this employers grouping on the locking out of returning strikers. And, well, is this strike over? Gerhard, from your perspective, if I just look at the statements that you've been making, and we've been watching your very not so smiley face on television lately, not least here on CNBC Africa last night, is the strike actually over if CNUMSA agrees that the workers can go back, but your guys are saying you're going to lock them out?
Well, you know, if you want to be very technical about it, I'll say the strike is over, but the lockout has begun. I'm smiling now. Look, this industry has between 12 and 14,000 employers. CNUMSA represents 2,000 of those. Amongst the 2,000 are a couple of very serious big companies. 500 of CNUMSA's top companies comprise 50% of the industry. So they have a deal that was facilitated by the Minister of Labour calling CNUMSA and NUMSA to negotiations, excluding us. We wrote to the Minister and we said to the Minister, you're making a very big mistake here. You cannot exclude us from these negotiations. The Minister engaged with these guys for 2 weeks, and they came back with a deal. They came back with a deal of 10%, and CNUMSA has given away almost everything. Well, not almost, but everything. Not almost everything, but everything. And so they didn't even touch on the issues that we went to the negotiations with as very important, namely the entry-level wage and the flexibility of the industry. So we were left out of the negotiations. I think the Minister made a huge mistake here. And they came back and said, here's the deal. They briefed us. Here's the deal. Will you please sign it? No, they made a mistake. We're not going to sign that deal. But it's their deal. That's a CNUMSA, NUMSA and trade union deal.
How many people do you represent? How big is your constituency?
In the metal industry?
Yes.
3,000 employers.
3,000 employers employing how many people?
I'd say approximately 80,000.
80,000?
Yeah.
And the Minister of Labour, that is still Mildred Oliphant, decided that you were not representative or sufficiently representative to talk to?
Well, she didn't say anything. She didn't even acknowledge receipt of our letter.
How many of those 80,000 workers are unionized or are members of NUMSA?
I'm not sure, Alec, I'm not sure.
But if they are NUMSA members, they aren't going to be let in back to work tomorrow?
Oh, well, if they are members of NUMSA and all the other units except Solidarity did not go on strike, they will not go back unless companies want to take them back. That's open to companies. If a company feels that they want to take them back, they're welcome to do so. But, you know, what we need to do is to let them understand that negotiations is a two-way street. What's happening with our negotiating partners, they come to the table to hear what the unions want, and then they go and establish ways and means how to give it to them. You can't do that. It is this kind of negotiations that brought this industry to the point where it is. This industry is in a downward spiral. Now, what is interesting, the CEO of CNUMSA, when he announced the 10%, he said he reluctantly agrees to it, and he said it will lead to massive job losses. Now, you don't sign that kind of deal. If that's what the deal entails, well, don't sign the deal.
But it does appear as though there are other motivating factors. We did have, in fact, the CEO of CNUMSA in studio a bit earlier, Kaiser Nyatsumba, and in the discussions he really admitted that the economics of this kind of a transaction are going to have consequences. But Gerhard, getting back to your people and the guys that you employ, if you have been, and clearly you have been following very closely, but if Andrew Goldstone from Invicta is accurate in that there were mobs of 100 or so heavily armed NUMSA members arriving at ununionized operations to force the workers to not go to work, what do you think is going to happen tomorrow when your members start locking out those same NUMSA members who want to come back to work?
Well, I don't know. But what I do know You cannot succumb to this. What's happened in this strike, this was in the strike or negotiations, wasn't actually negotiations, it was a form of blackmail. That's what you do, you engage in strike action and intimidation and violence to such an extent that you force companies to stop operation. Now, if it wasn't for this kind of action, the strike would have failed. There was not sufficient popular support for the strike, so they have to engage in violence and intimidation. But the problem is, by succumbing to this, we are setting a tone for future negotiations, and if NUMSA has seen this is the deal. We demand, go and strike, we negotiate with the big guys. They make the deals and they make the easier deals. I'm not saying that this was an easy deal, this is a hard deal, but that is not our deal. Our deal is even more difficult. So, and this is it's creating a very dim future for this industry, and that's not happened now. It's happened over years. This industry has lost 700,000 jobs in the last 30 years. NUMSA said at the outset of these negotiations that the industry lost 250,000 jobs in the last 5 years. 700 over 30 years. In terms of employment numbers, we're back at 1972. I mean, it's a clear, we can see where we're going to. In fact, as we said at the negotiation table, a CNBC top company sent me an email. He says, the way this is going, in 10 years' time, there will be no metal industry left. Well, he's one of the guys that's signing the deal now.
Extraordinary. Extraordinary.
Yeah,
NEASA's Chief Executive, Gerhard Papenfus, putting a lot on the table. If you've been watching this program from the outset, we did talk to Wilhelm Herzog from RCM at the top of the program, who was giving us the view that, well, perhaps this is in the interest of the big employers because it shakes out the weak. And who are the weak? The smaller companies.